Hey guys, Jason here. Hello again, been a long time. I haven't been flying much recently, just life gets in the way. A lot of flying was done through the summer and things just kind of quieted down. I just did some trips here the last few months up to help out my folks who are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so I haven't produced any kind of flying videos, but this is a genre today, a video that you guys seem really keen on. That's my operating cost videos. So I'm going to show you my 2021 end of year operating costs. So it's going to be a PowerPoint with a talking head. So for 2021, I flew 91.6 hours. Last year, to put it in perspective, I flew 108 hours. So I kind of budget for around 100 hours a year. And then the average price that I paid for fuel this year is $5.31. Last year it was $4.62. So remember, oil went negative last year briefly, and just because of the pandemic, things were generally energy prices were low last year. So with that mentioned, let's actually look at what I paid this year for avgas prices. So the cross plot here. On the vertical axis, the y-axis is the price per gallon, and then all the little blue dots are the actual price per gallon from filling up the airplane during my flights this year, and then it's the date across the bottom. So this is all of 2021. So there's a gap at the beginning because the airplane was an annual for a couple months at the beginning of the year, but roughly the start of the year I was paying around $5 a gallon on average. And then at the end of the year, I was paying 75 cents more a gallon. I was paying $5.75 per gallon by the end of the year. I burned 2,103 gallons. Yes, I'm a climate criminal, sorry. You only live once. Until they make an electric 310, that's what I'll be doing. Sorry, that's all I can do is apologize. The total fuel spend was $11,250. Last year, I spent just a little bit more than that. Fuel was cheaper, but I flew more. But it kind of worked out almost the same. And that's about a third of my total annual budget is fuel. So anything you could do to get fuel consumption or fuel costs down, that would be great. But it's the world we live in now. And my average fuel burn was 23 gallons per hour. Last year, it was a little bit less than that. So this is simply taking the total gallons I burned and dividing it by the number of hours I've flown out of my logbook. And it's a bit more this year. And I think it's because I went a bit faster this year. We normally fly pretty high, but I think I kind of made sure, I kept the throttles firewalled, and I think I ran a bit higher RPM this year. So I just burned a little bit more fuel. And that's average. So that's including taxi, takeoff, climb, cruise, descent, landing. Let's keep going here. My fuel cost per hour was $122.85. As far as maintenance, that's kind of the other big ticket item on an airplane like this. I feel like I'm more or less caught up on maintenance. If you go back and look at my videos from previous years, I bought this airplane, 3 years ago now. Previous owner did a really good job maintaining it, but he was getting up in years and he just, I think he was losing interest. So a few things were deferred, nothing major, but I'm all caught up now. I'm pretty happy with where the airplane is. The total maintenance spend this year is $15,575. So that's $8,250 for labor. And the previous year, I'd spent $13,637 on labor. So, it's definitely coming down. And then I spent $7,325 on parts, and almost all of that, save maybe a few $1,000s, was on magnetos. So I was having starting problems, I was having problems with the magnetos. When I took the cowlings off, they just looked horrible. They looked corroded, looked like they'd been on there a long time. So we just decided to ship those off and exchange them for new magnetos. and they're pretty expensive. They're over $1,500 each, if I remember correctly. Let's keep going. So there was 0.9 hours of maintenance for every flight hour. That's still pretty high. Last year it was 1.3. I mean, that will come down as I get the airplane under control. But I think something you need to understand, if you're going to maintain these airplanes properly, they require a lot of maintenance. And I wish I could do it. If I had my own hangar and I had an A&P that would supervise me, I would do a lot of this. A lot of these costs would come way down, but I live in a big city. I've got a busy job. I don't have the time to go out there and fiddle with the airplane like I did in earlier times in my life. So, okay, the maintenance summary. So as I mentioned, of course, there's always the annual inspection. I spent a lot of money on new magnetos. I put new tires on the plane midway through the year because they were getting close to bald. I had to overhaul the autopilot attitude indicator. I think that was over $1,000, and I had an EGD probe that needed to be replaced. That was relatively minor. It was a few $100, including labor. So here's the yearly summary. If you're new to the channel, I've owned two 310s. I had 71 Whiskey Delta from 2008 to 2011. And then I've owned this airplane. I bought it in late 2019. So I've got 2 full years now of costs. So 2020 and 2021. So this year, the summary, you can look through, you can pause the video if you want and look through how many hours I flew each year and how much I spent. But the columns at the top are the year, the hours flown, the average fuel price, dollars per gallon, the total maintenance spend, including the annual insurance, the total annual spend. So that's not the annual inspection, that's the total per annum spend on the airplane, and then total costs per hour. So for this year, as again summarized at the bottom, highlighted in red, 2021, flew 92 hours, paid $5.31 a gallon on average. I spent $15,575 in maintenance, $3,080 in insurance, which is actually down a little bit from last year, whereas a lot of people's insurance is going up. The total annual spend on everything, so that's hangar, maintenance, fuel, insurance, etc., $36,865. And if you do the math on that, it's a cost per hour of $400, which is more than it's been, $400 an hour. It's more than it's been in previous years, but again, I didn't fly quite as much. So here's my budget for next year, and if you're considering a 310 to purchase, this could be a rough a start for you for a budget. Of course, your costs for hangar may vary where you're at, and your insurance may vary, especially if you're a new twin pilot. But this is for me for next year. I'm hoping to fly 100 hours per year. My insurance, I'm just going to assume it's going to say around the same. My hangar's gone up to $650 a month. I'm in a big city. It's just what it is here. It's a big community hangar. There's no T hangars available where I'm based. Fuel, I'm going to say, is $5.75 a gallon. So that's $132 an hour. Oil, I'm just going to say $500 a year for oil and oil changes. Annual inspection is $7,500. So that's the base inspection plus average squawks. So the actual inspection part of it is probably $3,000 to $4,000, 30 to 40 hours. But I'm just assuming, based on my experience, $7,500 will be the annual inspection part of it and just kind of average squawks. And then other maintenance through the year, that's probably a little bit too generous. It's probably going to be less than that, but there's just always something. And I tend to be proactive and just send the plane to the shop every time it needs something. So the total for my airplane and my budget for 2022 is $37,105, which is $371 per hour. So, and this fits real well with what I've said in the past. I've got other videos on what it costs to own a 310. I've said anywhere from kind of, 35-ish to 40,000 a year. If you can afford that, then you can afford to run a 310. Now, of course, that doesn't include any upgrades. That's just to run the plane as is. So avionics, paint, interior, anything like that you want to do is not included in that cost. And also my budget doesn't include any hourly reserves because I'm just self-insured. If if I have to change an engine, then I have other sources for that money. So speaking of which, my plan for 2022 is some avionics upgrades. So the plane is in annual right now in January of 2022. I don't have any major squawks. The only thing, they're going to reseal one of the fuel tanks, the right, should be starboard tip tank. I've been getting some little black flecks of sealant from that, so it's obviously perished. And so I've asked them to open that tank up and reseal it, but I didn't really have any other squawks. As I mentioned, I feel like I'm really kind of catching up now on the plane. So it's an annual. It should be done here in a few weeks. And then hopefully around March, I'm going to go in for a major avionics upgrade at a local avionics shop. So I've already paid for an S-Tech 3100 because there was a 6-month wait. I actually ordered it through the avionics shop last summer, and it's due in the next week or two. And we're going to rework the panels. So the majority of that upgrade centers around pulling out the old 400 autopilot, Cessna 400A, installing the new S-Tech 3100, add a second G5 for the HSI. I'm going to update the engine monitor, which using existing sensors and whatnot. So it's just a plug and play there. And then we're going to fabricate new instrument panels and paint them and screen print them and stuff. So that's going to be done here in the spring. So I may not have many, flying cross-country type videos here, just depending on when the plane goes in here. But I'll try to keep producing content as much as possible. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. If you're thinking about buying a twin, now's the time to do it. Fuel prices are going up. I think there are people trying to sell. Unfortunately, there's not many good quality 310s out there. Most of them are project planes, but I've got a video that talks about, which I'll hopefully leave a link here in the description, that talks about OPEX versus CAPEX. If you can afford the running cost of a twin, you can get an awful lot of airplane for around $100,000 to $150,000. And considering what single engine used airplanes are going for now, twin may be a great way to find a quality airplane if you can stomach that annual operating cost and have some cash reserves. So anyway, thanks for watching this. Take care. See you soon.